just 5 days before the big guy comes down the chimney and drops off all of his gifts. Thank you so much for joining us for what I believe will be an outstanding conversation on the Sportsline Podcast. As always, I truly appreciate your feedback, suggestions as we creep closer to a new 2025 season. Today on the pod, a world champion who's already celebrating the holidays after recently delivering a season's beating. Her name is Sara Bailey. She lives in Etobicoke and fights out of the West End Athletic Club. Last April, the decorated five-time Canadian amateur champion with over 140 bouts under her belt turned professional and shook up the world by becoming the fastest Canadian to ever win a world title, taking just 4 bouts. The 30-year-old has an outstanding trainer. She understands the boxing business, and now the WBA champion has a mission to unify all 4 world light flyweight titles. Sara Bailey's on the red couch as a world champion. Thank you so much. Stevie Bailey as well, too, the trainer. Thank you guys for coming in. And I think you have such a wonderful story, and I'm glad you've come in to share it.
Thanks for having me here today. Appreciate it.
I'm going to say, guys, world champion. Can you just grab the belt, please? Grab the belt for me here. Wear it like you should.
Wear it like I should, eh?
Look at that.
You want me to strap it on?
Sure, put that strap that on.
Strap it on, eh?
How does that feel?
Incredible. Yeah. Feels better winning it the second time around. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Felt good the first time, but the second one really cherry on the top right before Christmas.
Stevie, obviously, it's part of your hard work, too.
Yeah. You know, you're only as good as your athlete. Your athlete's only as good as your coach. But Sarah's done phenomenal in the last 10, 12 years, being as committed as she has. And this is a result of years and years of work that culminates in one night. But it's a team effort from everybody. And I couldn't be prouder of Sarah and what she's accomplished.
You know, Sara, I've been kind of in the Oakville local boxing scene in the Oakville Club. They have these club shows. I went to my very first one recently, and here you were, sort of a guest amongst this show, and you stepped in the ring. You spoke to the crowd about winning your strap, about the hard work it took, and you were there, I thought, as a motivational force as well, to talking to everyone, because there were some young boxers out there, and I thought you were so impressive. How does this feel for you to be out there, not only as a world champion, but a representative of the sport?
Incredible. I mean, I think my last amateur fight probably was in Oakville, I think. One of the last few ones I had. And I want everyone to know that that's exactly where I started. I started at the lowest, right? Going to these club shows, and even being a 5-time Canadian champion, going off to Ireland, winning nationals there twice, being as high level as I was still going to these amateur shows as well. And that's what ended up getting me to this point, right? Just putting in the work, doing what you can, and fighting as much as possible. And that literally anyone who puts their mind to it can achieve exactly this. I wasn't naturally gifted as an athlete. I just worked really hard, and I was consistent.
Well, here's the thing. You put in all kinds of fights as an amateur. How many fights as an amateur?
140, I believe. 138, 39, let's call it 140.
Because you're 30 years old, because I think, just naturally looking at you, I don't think you're 30 years old, right?
I appreciate that.
When you read about your story, I mean, it's an amazing thing here, too. And I think also to establish, too, Sara Bailey's your new name. You just let everyone know about who people are like, I think I know her.
Yeah. So Sara Hariratju, Persian last name. Mm-hmm. And so I started boxing at 16. That's when I had my first fight. And I was 16 fighting out of British Columbia. I'm from Vancouver. And I didn't move until June of 2014 to train with Stevie. So the last 10 years we've been together. Mm-hmm. But before Stevie, I had maybe about 15-ish fights and had been to nationals. And I just knew that if I'm going to grow in this sport, I have to move, I have to get away, I have to go to where all the rest of the boxers are in Canada, which is either Ontario or Quebec. And luckily, I came across Stevie at my first nationals, and we spoke. I came over for a training camp. I loved what I saw here. I loved how many females there were in the sport at that time, and I just decided, I have to make the move if I want to get, my main goal at the start was get on the national team. And then little by little, it was setting these small little goals, you know, going internationally, winning international tournaments, and then eventually, turning professional. And it was just setting those little goals, hitting those goals, and then just seeing like, man, like sky's the limit. I could keep going with this.
Before Stevie steps in here, I'm going to go a little bit further back here. I think about your time, you know, the kind of the age, the era when you came up. I think of like the first one that comes to mind to me would be Layla Ali, and she started her career in 1999. Yeah. So even when you started, compared to now, the amount of women boxers out there, it's probably multiplied by 10, maybe even more.
Yeah,
but at that time, there's not a lot of women boxers, especially in this country. What was your motivation to get into boxing? What other things did you do? Was it, I mean, hockey, baseball? Like, was there anything else that appealed to you before you went to boxing?
Yeah, so I played basketball for 8 years. From the age of 8 to 16, that's what I was doing. I was a diehard Kobe Bryant fan. I absolutely loved it. I was just playing through school. Mm-hmm. And I thought that going throughout my high school, like I was a jock, and I thought this was going to be it for me. I was going to play high school basketball, go off to university. I wasn't going to be a superstar in sports, but I just wanted to finish it up. My last 2 years of high school, I finished at grade 11 year. I just wanted to finish off my school year of just playing basketball, and that was it, right? I didn't think of boxing ever. My brother was a boxer. He was at a boxing gym. My dad was a wrestler. For the national team in Iran. So combat sport was in our family, but me personally, I just loved basketball, right? I played all this team sports. That was my main one. And I have to think that grade 11 year, the coach switched over, and the female coach we had did not like me. She wanted to bench me. And she's like, you know, you're on the team. We're going to have you on the team, but we're going to bench you. And I went home, cried my eyes out. My parents were like, Jesus, Sarah, like, it's okay. And I was like, no, but that was my identity, right? That's who I was in school. Everyone knew me as just like the baller, and, you know, like I've played grade 9, 10. I just wanted to finish year 11 and 12, and that was it. And so cried. I was like, I can't just sit on the bench. That's not me. I'm so competitive. So my parents were like, why don't you try the boxing? Just go with your brother. Just do it, right? And I was like, oh. Like, look at him. He had cauliflower ear. He had the broken nose. He was 14 months younger than me, too. And I was like, I don't want, and they're like, you know what, just do it for the fitness. Just do it for just, you know, bonding with your brother, and just go. Like, you like sport. You don't want to just do nothing through the next 2 years of your school years. So just go with them. So I did. And this was back in BC at Astoria Boxing Club. And within about 5-6 months, my coach turned to me, Terry Cook, who, rest in peace, he's passed away now, and said, you're ready for a fight? And I was like, what? Like, yeah, you're ready for a fight. I'm like, okay. I didn't think anything of it. So they enter me in BC Golden Gloves, which is a tournament. Normally you start out with club show fights, right? They throw me into a tournament as a youth. So that day I won 40-12. They should have stopped the fight, right? Back then it was point system. Mm-hmm. Fight should have been stopped. So I demolished the girl. Then he opens me up the next day, didn't tell me. So I was in a youth division. He now has put me in senior because, again, back then there was a lot of leeway. You could do whatever you want. So as a 16-year-old, I fought a 24-year-old. Didn't know. And I get into the fight, and again, I win. They raise my hand, and I was like, oh, my God. I even gave the girl an 8 count, whatever. I was like, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I think because of the basketball, maybe, like, you know, the lateral movement. I had watched my brother. Growing up, I had been to all his competitions, so I feel like I just picked it up quick. But it was just a case of like, man, like, I'm pretty decent at this. I've always wanted to be a superstar in sports. Maybe boxing's my thing. Mm-hmm. And I get to do it with my brother, which unfortunately he passed away last year. And it made our relationship so much tighter as well, right? We're only 14 months apart, so he was my best friend doing it, so.
Well, and I can ask you about your brother, I mean, and how he remains with you to this day?
Oh, man, the boxing just bonded us so much. And he would always tell me, you know, Sarah, you're long-term. I know I'm short-term. He would say that, like, yeah, he was very athletically gifted. Stevie could attest to that as well.
One of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
He'd show him something from a camera, like, can you do this crazy stunt? And off with him, he would do it.
It was insane, but he'd be like, you work so hard, you're going to be long-term. You will be a world champion. And I just look at him like, are you kidding me? You're like, you're the incredible, like, good-looking. You got all the things. You got the height, you got the skills, you got, like, it's going to be, no, Sarah, you're going to be a world champion. You're going to be, and he kept reiterating that. When I was 3 3-4 fights in, and I just feel like with every fight I go into, I keep getting better and better. And like Sasan's right here on my shoulders. He's always his name is on the back of my shorts. I'll do that for the rest of my career, and I'm doing it for my parents as well, I find.
That's a wonderful story, and congratulations that you get to celebrate him. I'm sure he would be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished and still what's to come. So when I look at Team Sara, we'll call it, Stevie, you're the manager, but there's also another relationship that you guys share.
Coach, manager, and husband and wife.
Like best friends.
Okay, so it's all encompassing. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you two things here. What's the relationship like in terms of, I mean, how can you separate the relationship, marriage, husband, wife aspect to being, I'm sure you got to be hard on her.
Yeah, she'll tell you herself. For me, it's quite easy. I'm very good once we step foot in the gym. Sarah's my boxer, and that's it. Sometimes she says I'm too good at it. I'm too good at separating it, and sometimes when I come home, she reminds me that her husband's come home and not her coach. But in the gym, I'm very blessed and very lucky that I've always only looked at her as a boxer. For example, for 5 years, as we were married and together, no one even knew we were dating. That's how professional we keep it in the gym. Yeah. At one stage, I had guys in the gym asking me, do you think I should ask Sarah out? And I'm like, yeah, go. I'm serious. Like, no one knew. Because in the gym, I'm very keen on treating everyone the same. I treat the 85-year-old guy in the Stairmaster just like I treat, Sarah, Ryan Rizicki, Lucas Body, Josh Wagner, just like I treat my two twin girls who are just turned 15, who have less than 10 fights, Grace and Olive, who we were there for that night with Sarah. Sarah coaches them too.
Yeah.
I like to treat everybody equal. And the more everyone's treated equal, the more everyone can grow together. I don't want there to be any like crazy divide, right? So I'm fortunate. I feel like it's a big asset in my coaching that I'm able to do that.
What about the trust level? How does that develop?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been to nationals 3 times with Stevie, and I kept losing in the national final, right, on a split decision. And that 4th time I went, I was like, maybe if I just listened to what my coach said the first time around, might actually win, and we might actually, surpass this. And I did.
Were you headstrong? Like, what was?
I think I was just, for some reason, just resistant to, I would just go back in my old habits, old ways. And finally, when I just like, you know what? And if you watch me fight now, everything this guy yells out, I'm doing. He says step right, I'm stepping right. If he says jabs, I'm jabbing. If he says go to the body, I'm going. And he's speaking in Irish to me, so it's great, right? Irish or actually Persian, Farsi. And so it's, just knowing that he sees something that I don't, and if you just believe in that, if you just believe in him, it's not even just trust, it's just that belief, it's gonna come off. You're gonna do it.
So he's seen you as an amateur. He's now obviously still with you as a professional. Stevie, go back to those amateur days. Obviously, you have trained world champions. We had Ryan Rizicki in there not all that long ago. Yeah. You're training him as well, too. He's on the world stage, and there are several before him. What made you say, I want to work with Sara Bailey?
The first time I ever seen her fight, she was facing one of the best boxers in the country at the time, and she had maybe 11 or 12 fights, and she's given the girl all sorts of problems, and the girl was an Olympian at the time. And just her feet were a little off, and I just kept saying to myself, if this girl knew how to move her feet better, she'd be beating this girl. And at 11 or 12 fights, I don't look at people who are already established, I look at people who are not established, and what can I do to make them grow? And like when I see someone with 11 or 12 fights pulling off things that they don't even have a right to be able to do, like they shouldn't even be capable of doing that at this stage. Like they don't know enough to be able to perform like this. Same like I saw Ryan, like, when I seen her, I just bumped into her later that day and I said, hey, if you fixed your feet. Now it turned out she had 2 fractured feet, which is the problem with her feet. So she had a legitimate problem, which
I wasn't going to miss my first nationals.
Fair enough. She's tough to fight through everything.
She shut me up pretty quick when she goes fractured feet. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But what I saw in her is the ability to, the mindset she had, the willingness to compete at that level. Like sometimes, I can train someone and give them all the skill sets possible, but they still have to have that inner belief and like that willingness to want to achieve at that level. Same like I seen in Ryan Rizicki, same with Lucas Body, same with Josh Wagner. All these people I've been with now for almost 10 years. And I was with them before anyone saw anything in them. I was with them before anyone knew. Mm-hmm. I'm glad people are seeing it now, but I've been saying this for a long time. And I just needed us to get to the point where we could prove it to everyone and they could show their skills.
but it sounded like you were the impetus for her leaving the amateur ranks and going professional. Why?
Well, amateur boxing is more of a sprint and pro boxing is more of a marathon. And at the highest level of amateur boxing, your IQ for the ring doesn't have to be as high if you're like a really exceptional athlete. Now, I'm not saying those guys don't have high IQ, but over 10, 12 rounds, you have to be very intelligent in the ring to manage that time. And the level of focus it takes over 10 to 12 rounds to be on point is a lot different to 3 rounds. So, you know, halfway through her amateur career, about 4 or 5 years in, I actually told her, you are far more suited to professional boxing. But the problem was Sara kept achieving high enough standards as an amateur that kept us in it because, you know, she won a medal her first year in international boxing. She got a silver medal in the continent here, which was, she completely exceeded my expectations because she was that special. I said, okay, let's stay here a few more years. It turned out everything we did worked out for the best because when we turned pro, we were so far ahead of the game. When we turned pro, we could, you know, bypass a lot of the early fights and go straight to this. But I said to her a long time ago, pro boxing would be your future. And she argued with me, and I said, look, we're going to keep the amateur going because you're excelling in a way that you shouldn't because you're unique. She's not really a fast twitch athlete. She's a very exceptional boxer, IQ-wise. And I just was fascinated with her ability in the ring to manage time, to manage each different style. Like, we traveled the world. I brought her sparring with some world champions while she was still an amateur, and we're doing 8 and 10 rounds. And we'd go spar, and the coach would be like, how many rounds do you want, 4 or 5? Because she's an amateur. And I'm like, no, we'll do 10. And they're looking at me like, really? I'm like, yeah, no, we'll do 10. You want 12? Because Sara already at that time was fit enough, strong enough. She was a pro boxer just finishing off her amateur career. So, and even when we turned pro, no one, even she didn't believe me when I told her what we were going to do.
Yeah, I was resistant again, where he's like, you're going to do your debut 8 rounds. And I was like, are you joking? Like, what is wrong with you? Show me, like, what other Canadians have done this. And he'd bring up all these other randoms. And I was like, no, I said Canadian, and I want to see female. And, like, he's like, just trust me, you're gonna like the 8 rounds. The 4, like, that's not enough for you. And sure enough, like, I did an 8-rounder. My second fight, I went into a 10-rounder, and then we went back to 8, and I was actually annoyed. I was like, damn it, I want 10. If anything, I want 12. Like, right?
It's
like, he was right
rare.
again.
Unbelievably rare to
I believe that.
Yeah.
So hold on, your debut fight here, this is, and this is the difference here because you have the amateur record, but when you become a professional, I mean, if you start off 0-3 at the pro level, it's not going to happen probably. I mean, but you start off with that debut fight. The lights are changing. It's not a small gym, bigger venue, crowd, maybe expectation. Because we've heard a lot about you.
Yeah. Huge.
What was that like?
It was a lot of pressure, and like 2 weeks before that, 1 week before, I'm panicking hard. Like, I'm having anxiety attacks, and Stevie's like bringing up the fact that I just went and sparred a world champion, and after we asked for 8 rounds, we ended up stopping at 6. Like, look what you just did, Sara. You know, like, you're ready for it. He kept like reiterating the fact that we've put in the work, and I kept like fighting him on it. But on the night, you know, I've been to world championships. I've been to like massive tournaments abroad, right? And I think that helped me. Like, you know, you're under the lights, whatever. All that was irrelevant for me. Like, I have been on the biggest stage before. I had felt that pressure before. So when I come out and the crowd is there and they're all cheering your name, I was like, man, this is cool. Like, this is the stage I really want to be on. And then you get in the ring and it's smaller gloves, no headgear. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, like, I think this is for me, right? The amateur was fun, but I prefer this.
I'm glad you walked down this road right here because that move from amateur to professional, and a lot of people don't know this. You're right. The gloves, lighter, harder, the blows, harder,
way
less,
harder.
you know, obviously were they 10?
8 ounce.
8 ounce gloves. So this is a big difference now. And the removal of the headgear. You're a 5-time Canadian amateur champion. But now you're in the pros. And, you know, you're sometimes fighting women maybe 4, 5, 10 years older than you that are much more experienced. What was that like? Like, receiving blows from professionals that have been in the ring on that level.
I mean, so Stevie kept, in the lead up to that debut, he kept saying your hand placement's really important. Like, you can't be doing the same thing like you did in the amateurs because you got, the headgear kind of saving you, top of the head shots, whatever. And I was like, yeah. After that first round in my debut, he was like, so what are the shots like? I'm like, I understand the hand placement now because I took a funky shot at the top of my head and I was like, what the heck is that? It just kind of threw off my equilibrium and I was like, now I get it. So immediately that mental switch happened. Just again, believing in Stevie, trusting in Stevie, like what he's saying, just listen to it and it's going to work.
On the way up, we talked about him earlier, brother, and there is tragedy. Yeah. You lose your brother. And, I'm sure he was right there to see the beginning of this, of what is going to be your professional career. And you had a fight. Yeah. I think it was your third fight?
Yep. Yeah.
How'd you deal with that?
I mean, it was at the Olympic qualifiers that we find out we're in Senegal. And I ended up losing to the girl who ended up winning the tournament. And it sucks because I had beaten her before. And, of course, at the Olympic qualifiers now, I lose to her. And it was the semis. I needed to get to the finals to qualify for the Olympics. So I lose. And I'm like, you know what? None of this matters right now because, like, I had never experienced grief before. And I thought losing a fight was grief, and now I've actually lost a family member, that being my brother. I had never known my grandparents, whatever. The first person to actually make me experience grief is my brother, who this whole journey started because of him. Had he not been boxing, I wouldn't be boxing. And I just felt like Stevie kept saying, you don't have to fight. We could postpone this. Like, Sarah, man, like, I had, straight after the qualifiers, I went back home, of course, for his funeral and everything. And within then 2-3 weeks, I have my third fight. And he kept saying, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this. And I was like, I do, though. This is the only way that I can make it through right now. Like, this is me grieving, and this is my therapy. Like, me fighting, that's me seeing him again, right? So there was no chance that I was going to postpone that. And it's been my most successful fight to date. Out of the 5 I've had, that third one was my best fight so far, my best performance.
Was she that good?
She was very good on the night, and it was actually that fight that made me believe we should just go straight to a world title next because the way she handled the pressure of, 3 weeks before that day, you're burying your brother. I kept pushing to postpone, and even though I'm the boss, she's still the boss of me because she's the fighter who hires the coach, and obviously the husband relationship makes it a little funnier, but I really wanted to postpone it. And we have a great promoter in Tyler Buxton, and he said, listen guys, whatever you guys want to do, you just tell me. Like, he was super supportive. The West End gym, I don't think any of this would have been possible without them. They were super supportive because there was a lot going on that 3-4 weeks in the lead up. And even on the night, we're in the back, the warm-up is going great. I couldn't believe how focused and sharp she was. Miguel put her through her stretches. Her body was firing on all cylinders. We go out there, and it literally was the most focused performance I've ever seen out of someone. And the girl we fought that night was ranked number 5 in the world. I got that girl to get her biggest test, obviously before all the incident that happened with her brother. And I was just in awe. And I turned to Tyler afterwards and I said, we got to get the best fight possible. Like, she's ready to go. But let's not waste any more time. Let's capitalize on this. And I was very grateful to Tyler, obviously Sarah's family, the gym. A lot of people helped make that night happen, but obviously Sarah's the one in there putting that kind of performance in when all the pressure was on her. I was blown away.
You'd been in situations where you're fighting for a championship, but this is a real title now, the WBA light flyweight title.
Yeah.
Fighting for that belt in that situation. The good thing is you're at home.
Yeah.
What's going on in your head?
Well, a lot of things. So I was facing a really bad injury, an eye injury that when you look at me, I don't look cross-eyed, but I felt like I was cross-eyed. And I had to wear these prism glasses for almost 8 weeks to level out my eyes. So I went to Vegas a couple of weeks before that fight and got a really bad headbutt. And it made a muscle behind my eye go a couple degrees up. So the doctors did all the tests, all the CT scans, whatever. It wasn't my brain. It was just the eye muscle. And they said, this is going to sort itself out eventually with these glasses, but it might take 8 weeks, 12 weeks and I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to fight? And I continued training. It was really uncomfortable. Like, looking at you, I would have seen 4 of you, 6 of you. Like, it was insane.
You don't need that.
No, I don't need that when a target is moving on me too. And Stevie kept telling me, like, man, like, you're hitting the pads so sharp. And I'm like, yeah, I can make out which one you are out of the 4. But it was so uncomfortable. And he's like, you know, what if you just close one of your eyes and fight with just like one-eyed? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times I had my eye actually covered with a patch, and that's how I was training for 6 to 8 weeks. And he kept saying, like, do we postpone it? And I was like, no, because again, this is another thing I have to face, is adversity again. My debut, actually, my mom had gone through brain surgery. Whoa. She had a tumor in her brain behind her eye, and nobody knew about that. I found out maybe 10 days before the fight. And again, I wanted to go be with her and I couldn't, because I have my debut to worry about. And there's been so many things for every single fight where I'm like, this is making who Sara is right now. Like, there's literally nothing that could come in my way and stop me from fighting. Mm-hmm. So it was to fight for this belt. It was, and to win the way I won, it was just, again, another tick of, like, look what you just did. Like, you're something special, and you're going to keep creating history, and you're going to keep showing to all these girls and guys, like, what you can do if you just set your mind to it.
Look at this visual right here.
Well.
And new.
Yeah. Oh, man,
awesome.
that was
achievement. Stevie,
huge.
First of all, how do your perspective?
Yeah, well, that's obviously, you know, my first world champion as a coach, and someone I've pretty much had since the beginning. Obviously, it's a little special too, because it's my wife, and now all the circumstances that went into it, and we created history, and like, we have a phenomenal team there. Miguel, Carlos, Josh, Tyler, everybody believed in what I suggested, because this was all my ideas, but everyone had to believe in my ideas. Whether they did or they didn't, they still followed them. And, you know, without Tyler at United, without West End, honestly, and it seems like they can't contribute that much, but to keep big fights here, we need a crowd, we need support, we need the community. And this gym right here has been the best community I've ever been a part of. Yeah. And they've helped us keep these fights here. The amount of people we're bringing to these events, where Tyler can be like, okay, we can draw a house, we can attract the numbers that can pay for this fight, because these fights are expensive to put local. Mm-hmm. They don't happen here very often because they're very costly. Yeah. So when you have a community like this, and you have a promoter like this, and a staff like this, and
and the amount of people who have asked me, like, oh, when are you going to fight in Vegas? When are you going to fight in MSG? And I'm like, the Vegas is here. We're bringing it right here. Yes. Toronto, it's happening. The Great Canadian Casino, it's happening right here. Mm-hmm. You know, eventually, hopefully, the crowd is big enough where we're going to Scotiabank. Yeah. But this is our little mini Vegas, right? Like, this is where we're going to bring the big fights. This is where I'm going to become unified champion. This is where I'm going to become undisputed, right? And this is going to happen, hopefully, in 2025.
You want to keep it here.
For sure. And a perfect example of that is your first title defense.
Exactly.
Which was just, you know, about a month ago.
Yeah. My defense last week.
Right. Well, there you go. Okay,
last
so
Thursday.
There you go.
Last Thursday. I got no marks on my face. Well, no bruises.
And what's that like? I mean, okay, now everyone knows your name. Look at you walking out on a much bigger scale. Exactly what you're talking about. In Toronto, you know, crowd. And a real tough opponent too.
Tough opponent, very credible opponent. She's been with the best of the best. Like, her accolades are just.
She's one of the most successful female fighters of all time in professional boxing. 19 world title fights, 14 successful world title fights, 12 world title defenses. She's a legend and a veteran.
Yeah, she came to put on a fight and take this from me, and unfortunately for her, it wasn't going to happen.
But I watched that fight. She got nasty a little bit.
She got nasty.
Oh, yeah. She got nasty a little bit.
She was dirty.
And you know,
yeah. and I did too.
And you responded, and I could hear Stevie go, "Ref, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's going on here?" Right?
Yeah, but again, like, amateur boxing, the referee's there to keep you safe. Pro boxing, it's entertainment. They are not going to protect you. It's protect yourselves at all times.
Yeah.
So.
Where do we go from here?
There's 4 recognized world titles that the International Boxing Hall of Fame, they recognize you as a legitimate world champion. This is one of them.
WBA.
WBC,
Yep.
WBO, and IBF.
Okay.
So Mexican girl, Juarez, Lord Juarez, I believe is her full name. She recently just won the WBC title, and then Evelyn Bermudez has the WBO and IBF. Both girls are veterans. They've been around a long time. I think Evelyn Bermudez is a 3-time world champ, I believe. She's 20 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Juarez is a 2-time world champ. She's like 37 wins, 4 losses. The goal is to have one of them next in March in Toronto and to have a unification, which hasn't happened here in a very long time. And I'm not sure if anyone's ever actually accomplished it as an Ontario resident to unify legitimate world championships.
Are you ready for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm making history every single fight I step into, and this is just my resume. This is what I do, and why not keep going?
It's an amazing thought because, I think because people are seeing you, people are recognizing you. I love the fact that you were so set on having a lot of these fights here in Canada. You may have to travel for, who knows? As you said, and there's, your resume in some respects, but you continue to build it, and that you have a goal in which you want to set. And as we all know, and we see this throughout all kinds of sports, it's real easy to get comfortable. But I'm not getting that from you.
No, and it's funny, when they handed me the belt the first time around in April, my smile lasted about 5 seconds, and everyone's like, you didn't seem like you were super pumped about it. And I was like Kobe Bryant says, job's not done, right? Like, I'm not done here yet. I've won 1 of the 4. I've defended it once now, and until I'm undisputed, I am not going to be happy. I'm not going to be resting. I'm not going undisputed is the goal, and it's a very doable goal. I've had little goals up until now. And when I started out boxing, it was get to 10 fights. It was win a tournament. It was get on the national team. That took multiple years. It was go internationally, win tournaments there. And now as a professional, it's become undisputed. And until I get that, neither one of us are going to be happy. And the two of us, we always make jokes, we're married to the sport of boxing, more so than each other. Yeah. We are actually married to the sport. And when this whole relationship started too, I was like, I've come to you to get on the national team, and these are my goals. And he's like, oh, if anything, Sarah, I'm going to be tougher on you. And he has, and it's worked out, right?
What's when you guys are at home and apparently he's a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. He watches that more than actual boxing. WWE, AEW, that's always on at our house.
When you guys are watching a match, whether it be old or new or live, are you in that mindset? Are you breaking it down?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm constantly judging. I need to start gambling or something, because all my scorecards are always bang on. I've commentated a couple fights now, and I've been literally on par with the judges, which is hilarious. But, we're so this weekend is the Usyk and Tyson Fury fight, and we'll be watching that, and each round we're like, just breaking it down. Yeah. And it's strictly just at that point, it's athlete and coach again, right? Like the husband-wife thing, I don't know if it comes out too often.
Sarah's also one of the head coaches at the gym now. She's also my assistant for Lucas Body. She's assisting me in the corner with Ryan.
Josh Wagner.
She coaches a bunch of the amateurs at the gym. So, for example, the day after her world title fight, she was back in the gym at 5 p.m., less than 24 hours later, doing pads with a girl named Grace Syme, who was having her 9th fight the day after. So 2 days later, when you met Sarah the first time. 2
days later, we were actually at Oakville again for a club show.
So Sarah was in the corner that night coaching.
Wow.
She's coaching classes tomorrow at West End all morning from 8 to 1.
Yeah.
She's a big part of the coaching staff there. And even that, I think, is unique that, most sports you can't touch the number one person. It's like you can't train beside someone on an NBA team, NHL team. You can come to the gym tomorrow, and from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you can do a class with a legitimate world champion, a legitimate, bona fide world champion. You can do a class at that gym with, and she's coaching there most days of the week, and I even find that to be super unique. She's coaching these young girls, and they're looking up to her as a role model. A lot of the young boys are looking up to her as a role model, and I think we're very blessed to have the opportunity to do that. But I also think people need to understand that they're blessed as well. That this can all be one fit. I would have loved to have been on the court with Kobe Bryant. I can't play basketball. But I, you know, when he was, I would have paid any money to share it, a second of his time. But in boxing, you can do that.
And I think that's what makes me more normal too, and feel normal. Like, yeah, I'm world champ, this, that, the other, but I want to be like the rest of the kids as well. I want to be like the rest of just the generic population as well, right? I want to be like just with them. That's the community we have, right? Like, I don't want to be the superstar, right?
But I mean, come on, be honest. When you see these kids looking at you, there's got to be a shine in their eye.
There is, and all I think and see is, you're going to make it happen too. Like, if I did it, you're going to do it too. That's all I keep thinking. Because growing up, like, I would look at other athletes, oh, I want to be like that. And here, like, I wanted to be a WNBA star, and that was never going to happen. And I always thought, I want to be a superstar in a sport. And it turns out boxing was going to be it. And if it wasn't, one, for my brother being at a gym, and two, that coach pretty much kicking me off the team, thank you, you know, I wouldn't be the WBA world champ right now.
Isn't that an amazing, amazing story?
Yeah.
You know, and I think what we're seeing right now, and I think you are, you know, in your own corner here for a different sport, but I think on the overhaul, this has got to be a proud time for you, a good era. Women's sports right now. We're going to have a WNBA team here in a year.
Massive.
The PWHL, professional hockey.
Yep.
Women that have been playing hockey for so long and getting $50 a game. Now making a living out of it, like a Sarah Nurse out of Hamilton here. And so many other sports that have blossomed. This has got to be amazing for you as a woman. In what is a man's world in itself when it comes to sports.
I think the fact that they're now giving us opportunity, everyone's like, why isn't there more of them, right? Like, the night I fought, we were the only female fights on the card, and everyone's like, wow, like, female boxing, I had no idea that's what it was like, right? And it's just like, give us an opportunity and we'll prove to you that we are just as good as the men. And growing up boxing, when I started at 15, 16, I never saw myself as, oh, I'm a female boxer, poor me. I was like, I'm going to get so good. I'm going to show these guys that I'm no different to the men. I didn't see myself as just, you know, a different gender fighting. I was on the same level as them already in my mind, right? I didn't think like, poor me, there's not enough of us, or, you know, like, we're in BC fighting the same girls over and over again. I changed my narrative. I moved across the country. And I was like, I will go to wherever I have to go to make sure that I get the credit that I deserve.
I think what we're also seeing, Stevie, and you can probably attest to this, not everyone's going to be a world champion. Not everyone's going to be a Canadian champion. I think of a couple of women here that they are training in boxing. That's how they want to keep in shape.
For sure.
And that's become a big thing for, I think, gyms like the West End.
Massive, and it's 95% of this gym doesn't compete. And nor, you know, what I push them to. It's a great place to train. It's a great place to build confidence. It's a great community to be a part of. Because most boxing gyms, it's a lot of humble people. Because it's a tough sport to not be humble in. No matter who you are, you'll get humbled in a ring at some stage of your life. So, like, it's a safe environment. It's a good way to build confidence. It's a great thing for kids. Like, a lot of young kids are in the gym right now. A lot of young, you know, 8 to 12-year-old girls, and we have a lot of teenage girls between 12 and 18. A lot of females coming, you know, on their lunch break, before work, after work. Great workout, full
fantastic
body.
Social club, you know, like, the connections you make and the people you meet and the friends and family, and it's just, why wouldn't you want to be involving yourself, right?
And
like,
great cross training for other sports.
Fantastic.
Like, we have lots of athletes come in that are hockey players, basketball players. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys come and do boxing now, and girls.
Soccer clubs
come in. Like, you know, I coach a lot of other team sports when they're cross training.
Right.
They love it. They love it.
Yeah.
We are talking a lot about combat sports, and at 108 pounds and where you fight, is it going to be just boxing? I know, and I don't know. I don't know if that's the right question to ask here, but I mean, there is this MMA thing that we're seeing guys. I mean, we're already talking about. I think it was Conor, McGregor talking about doing a boxing fight again, and he's an MMA guy. Is there any opportunity or anything that you would ever think about that in terms of mixing?
So at 16, 17, I did try a bit of kickboxing stuff, and that first kick I took, I was like, nope. Not for me. Absolutely not. I took one to the inside of the leg, and I was like, I can't do it.
Right.
I feel like when you start with boxing, you stick with boxing.
Right.
If you go to MMA or that mixed martial arts, you like that. I can't take a kick.
Right.
I cannot. I mean, money talks. So maybe, but very doubtful. Very, very doubtful. And especially because there's so many disciplines to it. There's the jiu-jitsu, there's Muay Thai, there's a bunch of things, right? I always talk and I make jokes of I would do bare knuckle boxing, take the gloves off and I'll do that, but that's still boxing.
That's madness.
It is madness,
That's her
but
idea, not mine.
I said at the end of my career, I'd do one, just one.
Well, you're quick enough to do that. Stevie, Sara, amazing what you guys are doing right now. I hope that people see this podcast or hear this podcast, and whether if they're not motivated to jump on Team Sara, to understand that boxing is alive and well in this country, and what you're doing is just unbelievable. 4 pro fights, you're a world champion, 5-0. 6, 7, 8, who knows what the future holds, but I hope that you keep in contact with us.
Absolutely.
I hope that you do get an opportunity at unifying that belt and becoming the undisputed world champion.
Thank you.
So please, good luck to you.
Appreciate
Keep in contact with us, Stevie. Obviously, you as well too, with your other fighters as well too. You know where we are. We love boxing in this, especially in the Steel City.
Yeah.
We love Hamilton. Hamilton loves its boxing. It's boxing and wrestling. So keep us informed. And again, congratulations. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks for
coming on.
Thanks for having us here today. Appreciate it.
It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. We love talking to world champions. If you know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, want to hear from you, hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you have something to say, we really do appreciate your comments. For the wonderful people that do make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so much. And before my voice goes, I'll say, we'll see you soon.